Now take the case of equality before law. 1400 years back, when common man was not even able to dream about equality before law, Holy Quran said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu kawwamina bil qisti shuhada'a lillah walau ala anfusikum aw walidaini wal akrabin in yakun ghaniyan aw faqiran fallahu awla bihima fala tatabiyul hawa an ta'dilu. O you who believe, stand out firmly for justice as witness to God, even if it is against you, your parents, or your relatives, whether be rich or poor. With this, equality before law was proclaimed by the Holy Quran 14 centuries back. Once a woman belonging to a noble family was caught for stealing, and Zayd radiallahu anhu, the adopted son of the Prophet, approached Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with a recommendation not to carry out the punishment. With visible anger and displeasure, the Prophet said, "Walau sarikatu Fatimatu bint Muhammadin lakattu'atu yadaha." Even if it was Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, definitely her hands would be chopped off. With this, the Prophet was teaching us that no one is above law. The great commander-in-chief of Islamic forces, Khalid bin al-Walid radiallahu anhu, gave 10,000 dinars to an Iraqi poet who composed a poem in praise of him. When the great ruler Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu came to know about this, he ordered Abu Ubaidah to conduct a trial to find out whether Khalid is guilty of misappropriation of public funds. Abu Ubaidah gathered people. A person got up and asked, "Khalid, whether the money you had paid to the Iraqi poet is from your personal account or public exchequer?" Khalid was shocked and was taken aback. In fact, he had given money from his personal account. Still, he kept quiet. The question was repeated, "Khalid, whether the money you had paid to the Iraqi poet is from your personal account or public exchequer?" Again, Khalid remained silent. At that critical moment, the great Bilal radiallahu anhu came forward and removed the turban from the head of Khalid and tied his hands with a shawl. Who had done this? Bilal, a former slave, to whom he had done this, against the great Khalid bin al-Walid radiallahu anhu, the commander-in-chief of Islamic forces. The same Khalid who was the hero and the great inspiration of the Islamic forces. The same Khalid who had won great victories for Islam. The same Khalid who had brought wealth, money, power, victory and fame to Islamic State. The same Khalid who had defeated the mighty Romans and Persians. The same Khalid who was victorious against the Egyptians. The same Khalid who was instrumental in defeating Syria. Yes, the very same Khalid was subjected to this trial, and that too for 10,000 dinars. In fact, this person had filled the coffers of Islamic State with millions of dinars. No ruler would ever think of conducting a trial against such a great commander who was instrumental in bringing a chain of victories. But Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu was a true Muslim and a great Muslim ruler, and he knows very well that before Islamic law, the tribe to which a person belonged, his family, his fame, his position among his people, the victories he has won, and the sacrifice he has made are immaterial, because all are equal before law. Can any person say that this sense of equality before law is primitive and outdated? Still, there are critics who allege that Islamic laws are obsolete and primitive. Now take the case of equality in religious places. The lower caste Hindus in India were not permitted to enter in many of the temples before India got independence in 1947. Only after agitations, led by great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and others, laws were enacted permitting them to enter places of worship. Martin Luther King, the great black leader, as well as a Christian priest, has written in one of his books that racial discrimination is at its peak in churches on Sundays when blacks and whites were provided separate seats. Even in this 21st century, there are black churches and white churches in America. But Sarojini Naidu, the great Indian leader, has said that democracy and equality is preached and practiced in the true spirit only in Islam. When the call for prayer is heard, when the believers assemble in mosque, king and subject, rich and poor, master and servant, all standing together, touching each other, shoulder to shoulder, and when they proclaim God is great, democracy and equality is at its best. In one of the most memorable moments in the annals of Islam, when the former black slave Bilal, with thick lips and curly hair, was standing at the top of the Mosque of Medina to proclaim the call for prayer for the first time in Islamic history, the noble chieftains of Mecca and Medina were standing on the ground. Can anyone say that this equality in places of worship is primitive and outdated? Still, critics allege that Islamic laws are primitive and outdated, and they are not at all relevant for modern times.